Chevre, how are you? Today is Erev Yom Kippur. I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilach, begashmis und beruchnis. Healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. All those that need help in whatever area in their lives should be helped immediately, and everyone should have a Gemar Chsima Tova, the most amazing year beyond the wildest dreams in every way. Before we begin the thought for the festival of Yom Kippur, we'll start with a pasuk from the Rebbe's new kapitel, and that pasuk is the pasuk Nun Zayin, where it says, Chelki Adinoi Amarti, Lishmer Dvarecha. David HaMelech says, my portion is Hashem. I said, by waiting for your words. Yesterday in Shul, we read Parshas Haazinu, and I happened to come across a Sicha, the Rebbe, that inspired me greatly. And if I would have known this idea before Shabbos, I would have spoke about it concerning the Parsha, but I didn't. So therefore we'll speak about it in connection to Yom Kippur and the pasuk we just mentioned. And we'll start with a pasuk from the Parsha we read yesterday. One of the pasukim in Haazinu says, Ki chelek adinoi amoi Yaakov chevel nachlosoi. For Hashem's portion is his people. So let's take a pause. 2 seconds ago we read a pasuk where David HaMelech says, Chelki Hashem, my portion is Hashem. Here we read a pasuk in Haazinu where it says, Ki chelek havaya amoi. We are his portion. So therein lies the foundation of all foundations, the secret of all secrets, the deepest concept in Judaism, which is that we love him, he loves us, enough said. Meaning to say, and I'm not saying this on my own, but all the great Chassidic masters discussed this, and most prominently the Mezritcher Maggid said a famous Torah about it, that God, Kaviyachal himself, and the Jews is shtei chatzoi tzuris, two halves. God is incomplete without the Jews are incomplete without God. As equal partners, we chose him as our portion, he chose us as his portion, meaning to say, we're the same stuff. God is the Jews, God is Jew DNA, the Jews are God DNA, essence to essence. And that is the foundation of Judaism, and was the contrast of Judaism to every other religion. And to understand it, we come to the heart and soul of Yom Kippur. The question is, we know that it says concerning Yom Kippur that Itzumai shel yoyim mechaper. The Gemara says that the day itself brings atonement. And the Rebbe explains at length in a talk in the volume 4 of Likutei Sichos the question. It's very good that God could say he forgives us and he won't bring us punishment, fine. But what does it mean that we say, Itzumi shoyeh mechaper? The word kapara also could be translated as cleansing. So he could forgive us, fine. He could choose to do what he wants. But how do we become cleansed by his forgiveness when we didn't do anything and we didn't do any change? And the Rebbe explains the profound thought and concept that the reason why God could cleanse us is because when we're talking about the level which is revealed and brought out on Yom Kippur, it's not that a sin took place and then we have to eradicate or cleanse the stain, but it's much deeper than that. On the day of Yom Kippur, the essence of the Jew shines and it reaches the essence of God, and in relation to that level, you never did anything in the first place. Similar to the Lashon which the Maimar Arzal say, the famous one, Ben kach u ben kach, boneihem, v'yev shalachlifim bu macheres. In Judaism, when we say we are God's children, to say that we can actually become his children makes no sense. In the modern world, there's a concept that a child divorces himself from his parents. That doesn't work in Judaism. In other words, it's not so much that we chose God, it's God chose us. In the same way that you are a child to your parents, not because you chose to be their child, but because they chose to have you. In the same way, our special connection to God, our God DNA, is not because we chose to have God DNA. God chose us. He inserted a God particle, a chelik elikam mal mamish, in every single Jew, and that what gives us and makes the special connection. And just like it was never within our control to make us Jews, it's not in our control to make us un-Jews, so to speak. And that's what Yom Kippur is about. Yom Kippur is about the essence to essence, that spark that's completely out of this world and was put into us, is revealed in all its glory and its full glory. And that's really, if we want to say, what's the essence of Yom Kippur? These two verses being revealed to the full degree. The verse that says in Haazinu, Ki chelik Hashem amoy, God says, you're my child, no matter what. Where you go, I go. And I shall never abandon you, no matter what you do. And we say, Chelki Hashem amarti. God is us. We are with Him, no matter what. That is the essence of Yom Kippur. And that is why, Itzume Shel Yom Mechaper. Because in relation to that level, as we said before, it's like we never did anything in the first place. And that's what we have to concentrate on Yom Kippur, what it means to be a child of Hashem, and what it means to be a loyal child, and a devoted child. And we concentrate and focus on those thoughts, we'll be better people and better Yidden and better Jews. The Sikha of the Rebbe that I discovered this past Shabbos is the Rebbe asks a glaring question. How is it that Haazinu, which is a song, and Moses sang a song, Moshe Rabbeinu sang a song as he spoke to the people, but it's full of verses of rebuke. Every single song, Oz Yashir, Shiras Miriam, Dvaira, and there's another song in Chukas where a miracle happened. Every single time we see song, it's connected to joy and happiness and miracles and positivity. Here, Moshe Rabbeinu was talking about the history and many of the fails and sins and things that we did wrong. And he's saying it as a song. How can it be a song? And the Rebbe explains, because over here, and this is a typical Hasidus perspective, everything is suffused and infused and permeated with the redemptive angle, the positive. So therefore, the Rebbe in the Sikha says, we're dealing with the Teshuva, which is called Teshuva Ilah, a higher level of Teshuva, a Teshuva which is full of joy. And the main point is that we're driving to an end. Everything was there to come to the end of the song, which says, V'chiper ad mosai amoi. We're going to get to that mechaper. We're going to reach to that level where we will bring out our essence, and that will connect with Hashem's essence. There's a story which I find absolutely amazing, which I call a regular Barditchever story. Now, when we say Barditchever story, we're referring to the tzaddik Rebbe Badichev, who was the great advocate for the Jewish nation, who always viewed everything positive and always stuck up for the Jewish nation and saw only the good in every single Jew. So you'd think you have to go back to the early 1800s, 200 years ago, to have such stories. Well, my friends, we have a story that took place in 1960, documented from a letter of the Rebbe, and I'll tell you the background, and then I will read you the words of the Rebbe himself in a letter that he wrote that causes me to get chills down my back and to cry when I think about the Rebbe's perspective and love for every Jew. There was someone who wrote to the Rebbe that he travels, and he, on his travels, came across a synagogue where there were 9 Jews and they needed a minyan. And they said, don't worry, we're going to get a minyan. And they called a 10th Jew. And a Jew showed up. He sat down in the shul with the other 9 members and promptly opened up up a newspaper and started reading the newspaper, turning the pages. And this person who saw this was incredulous. He couldn't believe it. Here's this man, this Yid, who's sitting in shul, where 9 other Yid are praying and having respect. And what's he doing? Completely ignoring the prayers and showing such chutzpah and audacity and disrespect to sit there in the synagogue, in the holy sanctuary, in front of the Aron Kodesh, and reading a newspaper. So he happened to write to the Rebbe that he came across such happening. So the Rebbe writes to him, and I'm going to read it inside because there's no better way to express it. And I'm quoting word for word from the letter. You write about meeting a Jew in the course of your travels who comes to the synagogue to help make up a minyan, yet at the same time reads the newspaper. Everyone, of course, reacts to an experience in a way that is closest to him. Thus, for my part, I make the following 2 extreme observations. First, I see in it the extreme Jewish attachment which one finds in every Jew. For here is a person who has wandered off to a remote part of the world and has become so far removed, not only geographically, but also mentally and intellectually, as to have no concept of what prayer is or what a house of God is, etc. Yet one finds in him that Jewish spark. Or as the old Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, expressed in his Tanya, the divine soul, which is truly a part of God. This divine soul, which is the inheritance of every Jew, seeks expression as best it can. And in the case of this particular Jew, it seeks expression in at least enabling other Jews to pray congregationally. And he therefore goes out of his way to help them and at the same time to be counted with them. Do you hear what the Rebbe wrote here? The Rebbe is looking at the Jew and praising him. He's a champion. He has no appreciation in his present state of what prayer is and what a house of God is. And yet he goes out of his way to join his fellow Jew to make up a minyan. That comes from his godly soul. That comes from his chelik, his portion of godliness, his God DNA which is in him. And that's how the Rebbe views it. We need a story of the Barditchever in the 1800s. We have a story in America in 1960. And the Rebbe translates, interprets this story as an expression of his extreme attachment to Judaism. And then the Rebbe continues. But wait, my other observation following from the above is as follows. If, where the odds are so great against Jewish observance, yet a Jew can remain active and conscious of his Jewishness, it can easily be seen what great things could have been accomplished with this particular Jew if at the proper time he should have received the right education in his early life, or at least the proper spiritual guidance in his adult life. This consideration surely emphasizes the mutual responsibility which rests upon all Jews, and particularly on those who can help others. So the Rebbe's 2 observations is, number 1, he picks up that Jew, he lifts him up. He says he's soaring, he's amazing, he's a champion. And then out of humility, he says each individual has to look deep in himself. Have I done enough for my fellow Jew who's not educated enough, who's not in a state that appreciates enough? What have I done to enlighten him and to bring out his spark? I want to wish you a Gemar Chasima Tova, and I want us to consider this letter on 2 levels. First of all, to make a resolution to only see the spark in another Jew, his neshama. And second of all, to realize this is the reality. It's not only about judging him favorably, it's realizing that this is the truth of his reality. Gemar Chasima Tova, Good Ki Ben Shliyar, reporting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.